Fallout Equestria the Chrysalis, Chapter 25, Part 4. I considered what a queen who would adopt that particular name might want to hear, and cautiously offered it.
Ponies are necessary but problematic. They're the best source of love, but they can be dangerous and paranoid. And lately, since my hive fell, I've seen some of the worst ponies have to offer. I've seen what raiders do to other ponies, and they're even worse with non-ponies.
Noting that the corner of her mouth had risen in a faint smug smile, I pushed just a little harder.
And I can't help but note that it was ponies who created the mega spells that put us all where we are now.
Queen Chrysalis smiled, revealing her sharp teeth.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
I nodded silently.
Tell me, how did your former queen deal with ponies? We hid.
I said.
We stayed in the shadows, trying to steal what love we could find without drawing attention. And because of this,
Queen Chrysalis said.
her hive now lies dead.
I winced, then nodded.
Yes, Your Highness.
She gave a pleased hum, turning to slowly strut back to her throne-like cushions.
You're right, you know. Ponies are a problem. They've always been a problem. We've had to hide in the shadows for centuries because of them, living like thieves and vultures. They've already tried to murder our entire species. They've turned the world into a wasteland, and even then they managed to find new forms of barbarism. Petty warlords, slavers, raiders.
I watched her, ears perked attentively. A good, eager, enraptured audience. She turned and sat primly atop her cushion, her head held high and proud.
You have come to us at a great time, Whisper. The Grand Pegasus Enclave, the final bastion of the old world, is tearing itself apart. The great slaver army of the North has been shattered. The twisted goddess behind the monstrous alicorns has been slain. Even the remnants of the Steel Rangers have turned on each other, decimating their numbers. Destroying the world wasn't enough for them. Ponies have had every opportunity to change their ways, but even in this wasteland, they continue to spread death and destruction, and we suffer for it. The queens before me have allowed this to stand for too long, but I will do what they never had the ability or courage to do. It is time for a change.
She looked down at me, seeing my smile. Her own grin grew, sharp-toothed and eager. I think she liked having an audience.
The ponies are divided, and their power is broken. A tremendous opportunity has presented itself to us. So tell me, Whisper, what do you think we should do?
I stared back, my heart hammering as I considered the question, knowing exactly what she had in mind. My eyes darted to the black-painted power armors flanking her, a small portion of what seemed to be a well-equipped fighting force, while I thought of the tremendous resources available to the Hive. The expected answer was obvious.
We could rule. The reign of ponies is over,
Queen Chrysalis said. She held her smug smile for a moment before turning to one of the motionless soldiers.
Colonel Sally.
The soldier nodded, the first time I'd seen them move. Meanwhile, the queen turned back to me.
Answer all of her questions and follow all of her directions. Do this, and you will be allowed to remain as a member of my hive.
I grinned wide and bowed my head, blinking as my eyes teared up.
Thank you, my queen!
Ocelli was a small, lean changeling, but her body language was full of confidence, even as she bowed to her queen. She led me off to a side room, accompanied by a pair of guards. I followed, grinning like a loon and occasionally pausing to wipe away tears.
Sit,
She said, indicating a chair beside a plain table, while she sat opposite it. I followed her direction, giving a sniff and another wipe at my cheek, my wings fluttering a couple of times before lying flat again.
Sorry, I'm probably not making the best first impression, getting so emotional and all. It's been a long time. So I gather.
Ocelli said with a faint smile, while she lay one foreleg across the table to view her Pip-Buck screen.
Which means we're going to have a lot to talk about.
She started in with the questions, which I answered dutifully. I told her of Queen Shadow and how she had guided our nomadic hive around the edges of pony society. sneaking in to steal what love we could and scurrying off before any suspicion could be aroused. I told her of my incomplete training as a scout, cut off when I was placed in a cocoon to conserve my hive's dwindling supply of love. I described my confused experience, waking up in the depths of a mine near Rust, surrounded by the remains of my dead hive, and wandering out to find the slaughtered raider camp above. Then I described my time wandering the wasteland, meeting Starlight, Dusty, and Sickle. Our encounters with raiders and mercenaries while scouring for old world ruins. And of course, though I was hesitant to mention it, my eventual uncovering.
Wait,
Ocelli said, her expression skeptical.
they know you're a changeling?
I nodded.
I managed to hide it for a while, but I had no idea what I was doing. I guess it was probably inevitable, but what could I do, really? I needed the food, and
I slowly shook my head.
hell, I was even scared when they found out. But it worked. Probably helps that they had no idea what a changeling was. I even managed to convince them to help me look for more of my own kind.
Interesting.
She said, tapping a couple buttons on her pip book.
Does any pony else know?
No,
I shuddered.
no, I was scared enough that they knew, and I think they were scared of other ponies finding out. I was more useful if no pony else knew what I could do.
I see. So, what does that make them to you? Friends?
I stared off into space, considering that question for a moment.
More like pets, I guess. They were good food and decent company, and I'd rather not see them harmed if it's convenient, but I wouldn't consider them friends, no.
She hummed and nodded, reading something from her screen.
That big one. Strawberry.
Sickle.
I said, then smiled awkwardly.
Sorry, she hates the other name, and I learned not to offend the huge short-tempered pony who could casually crush my skull.
I raised the hoof, rubbing at the side of my head.
One concussion is more than enough, thanks.
Ocelli nodded.
Sickle, then. We've been having difficulty with her. I don't doubt it.
I said, with a soft snort. A smile flickered for a moment on Ocelli's face.
It sounds like you were able to keep her in line, and get love from her. How?
Well, keeping her in line is more like knowing when to let her loose and what direction to point her. She loves to fight and kill, and the best I could do is make sure she fights and kills the right ponies. She gets bored when she can't fight too. Drugs and sex helps, but she still tends to be pretty aggressive.
We obviously can't have her killing others in the simulation.
Ocelli mused.
Sure, it won't actually kill them, but I can't imagine the extra work the simulation staff would have to put in to deal with the chaos that would cause. Drugs are out too, unless she'd be content with a little alcohol and some cigarettes.
A lot of alcohol.
I said.
Though that only mellows her a little. Combine that with hard drugs or sex, and that could keep her pleasant.
Ocelli pondered that, tapping a hoof to her chin.
Sex we could manage. Maybe the sim staff could steer one of the stallions to her? Or does she prefer mares?
I think she's fine with either, but prefers stallions.
I said. Then I clarified.
Stallions, plural. Unless you've just got one just as big and aggressive as her, she's not going to be satisfied by just one.
Ocelli frowned thoughtfully, then slowly shook her head.
Sounds like she's going to take more work than she's worth. Pity. The raider types can be tricky. The staff was planning on euthanizing her and being done with it, but they hoped that you might have some insights.
I'm afraid not.
I said, with a slow shake of my head.
I think she's too well adapted to the wasteland. I know the Hive has employed raiders in the past, though. It's part of how I found my way here. If she isn't useful in that simulation, she might be useful as some sort of hired agent.
Ocelli hummed.
I'm sure it's under consideration. Now, why don't you tell me what happened after they discovered you were a changeling?
I continued on to tell her how I convinced the others to help me look for any signs of other changelings. How we followed a clue about a possible changeling hive in the Badlands, only to find a gaping crater in its place. How we'd scoured old world offices looking for clues. How after Emerald had been killed, we had realized Lady Amber was a changeling, and came looking for Serenity. How we had seen Stable Tech and CLT offices there, two of the companies she had sent us looking for at Paradise Beach. The whole way, she kept slipping in quick questions, clarifying little details. We must have spent 3 hours at it before she finally called it quits.
I think that's satisfactory. I'll pass this information on, then we can get you situated. Come along.
She led me out, and I followed her down a series of halls while the guards remained behind. The whole place was in excellent condition, well-maintained, and full of changelings going this way and that. The hive was alive and thriving, and I grinned as I looked around. So many changelings, all carrying out their business, and I moved through them, as if I truly belonged there. I caught the faint smile Ocelli wore, and gave a sheepish smile of my own.
Sorry, I just gotten so used to being alone.
I glanced to the side, and quickly changed the subject.
Is this a stable? I've seen pictures before, and the architecture seems pretty distinctive.
It is.
Ocelli said, with a nod.
Ironic that the ponies should have become better than us at underground shelters. But thankfully, their wartime preparations could be repurposed to allow our hive to survive.
That hive kinda reminds me of the Institute, not gonna lie. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what they aimed for. Anyways, let's get on to our intelligent donators. Top donators are 630, BadassWaffle, Onlyonething, Ceru, Orion, IronSky, and Jessie Smith. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel, Skies, Austin, Rolan, Stu Hex, Sword Brother, Mordred, Omicron, Lyrae, Rinslife 9852, Will Chris, Twinkie, Right Soul, Shadow Moon, Luigi 88, Chancer Crust, Big Smoke 369, Bobcat GGF, Murder Princess, and many more awesome people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.